Uh, well, you could have different types of administrators, right? HR administrator, all this other stuff. And then based on their security, you can kind of clamp down as to how far their security they can have access to the Workday system, right? Again, like Workday implementers, excuse me, usually have access to like everything. So they're kind of considered a super user. Um, Super user, I don't know if you're talking about in kind of PeopleSoft, there is a designation for like a super user. But over here, administrator is dictated by security. So, you could call it administrator, right? And it could even be delivered by Workday as an administrator. But until you give them access to the domains or the BPs or reports, they can't really do anything. They could be called whatever set of configurable steps, right? To create, to complete an overall kind of task. So we looked at hiring an employee. I think we looked at a couple of other BPs, but everything that you're going to kind of kick off or a process that you're going to kick off, there's a BP that's tied to it. So there's the initiating the BP, so the person that could actually initiate it. So if I want to change my name, I can probably initiate it. And if I've configured it appropriately, the BP policy, I could have it that an HR admin can also initiate. Let's say something, the employee reached out to me, I need to change my name. Instead of them initiating the BP um, for the change legal name, I can do that. And then maybe I'm just gonna make a note and see if I could show that in the tenant. And then, for that, there's several steps that might be on the BP. Maybe they have to submit asking the employee to do a specific action, to submit a document showing that they went through the appropriate process to change their name and what the current certificate or whatever is showing their legal name. Then having the HR admin have another step saying to review the document and then just approve it. And then there's overall actions that you can take on the BP. So you can view the information, you can rescind the whole like whatever step that what let's say you approved it, you want to go ahead and either cancel or rescind it, or you just want to correct something, you can also do that. And then on a BP, you can also do this. Let's say I go on leave and I'm the person that usually gets these approval steps. I can actually make sure that this is delegated to a different person. And that reminds me, I wanted to get back to your question, Sriram, about how do you know where something is? And I feel, again, it comes down to the security access over here. You can go on the person. Let's say I'm managing a specific employee and they started their change legal name, and we keep on having our one-on-ones, and it's like, my legal name isn't showing correctly in the tenant, like it's still showing. I mean, maybe I changed my last name from Kapoor to, I don't know, Han, and Kapoor is still showing up, but like I got married, I need to change it to Han, and it's not showing up. I'm talking to my manager or HR. I can go in and look on the related actions and see where that BP is. I wonder if I could do this. Give me 1 second.
I think the
Usually
other
I
way
have,
around. Yeah.
um, so you said IT operations was the org?
Yeah.
Was it this one? Let's see.
Yeah, the first one.
This one? Okay. Let's see.
The first one in the list.
I think this was the first one.
Oh, okay.
Let me see something else. Oh, here, David Madrid. So there's a whole bunch of stuff. So here's all the steps, right? And now this person, we can't log in as HR partner and compensation partner. So this employee is getting stuck in this BP because we don't have access to all of this. But if you remember, for Alex Patrick, I think that's where I was hiring somebody, John Smith. Let's see if he's in here. Actually, I don't remember where I hired him into, but when I look at this VP, I think that's what I was showing. Oh, here he is, John Smith. And the reason that he didn't have any issue being hired is I basically dumbed down the BP, hopefully. And the way you can tell, like that you actually also, like, just like how I went here and did that related actions and kind of show me the business process that's tied to this business object. So this shows me all the business process that is tied to this supervisory org, right? And because I probably changed the definition, it'll show me that hire for and the specific org name, right? Since I'm coming from this EXP, whatever that is. Let me go ahead, filter. And when I go into it, I think I only left the initiation step. Yeah, and so that's why I didn't run into any issue with hiring this employee. So I would do it again. And you could take, whichever org you're doing, look at the related actions and then just do the same thing that I was just doing.
Okay.
Like go to the specific supervisory org. So just like the way we did here, right? IT operation, you don't even need to click into it, just do related actions, go to business process, and either you could create or copy. So let's just do that, right? Like if you're doing it for the first time, let's do copy existing definition. So by default, the business process that's going to be defaulted here to this supervisory org is just usually the default definition, right? But if I want to, like, I don't want to touch that default definition, but I want to copy it, I will, of course, it's not letting me. So let's cancel out of that. I think again, it's the security thing that I'm running. Oh, I think I clicked on the wrong thing. 1 second, let me try that again. It's really here. So hire. And now this is the one that's linked to it. Now I can go in and I'm just going to go ahead and remove everything. All right. And now you see, right? Like I was looking for the business process type of hire and I said to copy the existing one, hire for IT operation. Of course, it can't go back in time. And this is something Sriram, you even brought up, right? Like if I change something that's previously, somebody's already gone through the BP or the transaction, it's not going to change it. So I can't remediate what happened to David Madrid. Somebody that has more security access, let's say, let's talk about Logan McNeil, she can reassign the steps or cancel the steps or just cancel the whole event and you could start it again, right? Or now you can try again now that this BP for, and of course, only if you hire an employee, hire a pre-hire into IT operation now, they're only going to have to worry about this step. But the only way, if the reason that you're asking about an activate is that, what's the thing that now you could sort of bring David through, you can't, because that business process, there was a certain business process that David was following at the time that he was being hired, right? So it needs to respect that. The only way you're going to be able to get David out of that limbo that he is in is by making sure that somebody that has access to cancel that event or reassign the steps that are assigned to him, to change that to somebody else or to just complete it, cancel it, whatever. That's the only way to get David out of that. I don't know if I can do, oh, here, view remaining process. So this is all the stuff that's remaining on getting this person hired, right? I don't believe this guy has compensation partner access. He does not have implementer access. He doesn't have, I don't think he's a manager of this org. So all this stuff is where this person is stuck, right? And someone that is part of this, they're probably getting an inbox notification here. Like, hey, you need to do something. You need to do the proposed compensation hire. Then the implementers, whoever has is part of this implementer group. And the other thing that I could show you that yesterday I don't think I showed you is to test membership, right? Like to find out if you have access to like the person that you're logged in as, and you're going to do this a lot. Do they have, are they part of this security group? So Alex, Patrick. And it's no, right? So they won't be able to perform any of those tasks. So just like I said, the org, you need to look at the BP. There's BP, right? Like you're seeing, right? There's BPs that kind of drive all the changes that you're kind of doing. So the tasks reports, that's domains, right? But when it's going through a certain process, that process framework, I guess, you need to make sure that the BP that's tied to the supervisory org, and I showed how that is, right? Again, you go to the BP, you look at the current definitions that they have, and then look to see what you need to kind of, at least for the current like labs or just playing around with things, you'll have to dumb down the BP to just include initiation. And it just is because, again, like the person that we're getting logged in as. But this person, as you saw, you can see where it's kind of stuck, right? You look at the view remaining process. It is compensation partner. And let's see. Again, it depends on this person's access. This person doesn't have access, but usually it should say, oh, here it is. So just clicking on that. So this is going back here, right? This is a constrained role-based security group. It's assigned to this compensation partners. And these are the compensation partners depending on their orgs. So you know how like in every org, let's go here. In every org, there's roles that get assigned, right? So you have these assignable roles. So this one was compensation partner. And for global modern services, it's Dylan and Logan McNeil that have been assigned compensation partners.
Okay, got it.
So those are the people, but every org, this can change. So let's go down to this one. And if I have it manually, if somebody hasn't manually assigned roles, if you go down to the subordinates, all of these are going to be inherited because it was listed at the top level. And every org underneath it, subordinate, if there isn't one assigned, is going to get this inheritance, but you could change it. And again, it depends on this guy's access. So I am in this, and let's say I want to change it for this specific one. And I'm making it effective again today. And let's see, I don't think it'll let me, but it's only giving me owner and I can't update it, but I'd be able to put in here. Let's say I wanted now this guy, Alex Patrick, to be the HR partner owner. I would just, not HR partner, which one were we talking about? The compensation partner? Right. Yeah, compensation. I would just type that in here. Of course, it's not going to let me because this guy doesn't have access. I would put that in here and I would put my name in here, Alex Patrick, the person that I'm assigned to. Then going forward, I'd be able to, you know, get those notifications in my inbox and then approve that whatever step that was on the hire, and I just put Alex, but of course this Alex isn't going to get it. But Ramesh, going in now, they should be able to do the pre-hire. It's just because of the business process. So in general, right now, when you're testing in the tenant, unless you're Logan McNeil, you should just look at the BP, dumb it down to just the initiation, just so that way it says that I use this BP, but then there's no approval or action that needs to be taken. Hopefully by the time we get to BPs, I think, which is coming after compensation, so probably Saturday or Sunday next week, then we can go into further about BPs, and hopefully we have a different tenant where I could show you more things. I think that's the reason. And then they're just circulating between, I think, the different classes. I'm not aware, like every time I ask the question, they're telling me that I need to talk to because like it's kind of like a third party, I guess, that they're using to get this access to the tenants. And so those are the folks that I guess know the information. Unfortunately, I don't. But generally what I've seen is that we kind of get to use the same tenant. In one way, it's kind of good that we're getting these refresh because everybody's kind of using in these training sessions are using the tenants, and we end up overriding each other's stuff. But of course, when the tenants are changing, you kind of have to, and that's kind of my struggle too, right? Like I start preparing the class thinking I'm going to do one thing, and then I get tenant access for this specific one where I don't even have access to most of the stuff that I want to show you guys. So I'm just trying to familiarize myself with the tenant as well and seeing what I can and can't do. In general, when you're going to be at a customer site or working with a specific partner, you won't run into these issues. But I completely empathize. I could see how this could be frustrating. But all I can do is relay the information, kind of be the middle party. And I know that's probably frustrating, but I'll just, make sure that they get this feedback. Yeah, they told me when I brought this up yesterday, because I just found out, when I logged in early yesterday before the class and realizing this person didn't have start proxy access and the stuff, they told me, that next week they're going to try their best to remedy this situation. And so hopefully we could complete the class with better access. Yeah, I think that they know that. I think something got missed here, right? So, and that's what, I've been trying to work through as well. I think they know that, but just something got missed here while creating this person's profile. Okay, so we talked about the BP stuff. Security groups, hopefully now it's kind of made sense, right? All a security group is a collection of Workday users. So when a Workday user gets created, so basically just has an account. So once you hire them, they have an account. They don't have any real access to anything. There's certain ones that, can just, a user can just default into. So one of them is employee as self, right? If it's being hired as an employee, one of the security groups that they'll get access to is employee as self. Well, what does that mean? That security group is tied to either domains or business processes, right? These security policies. So there's two types of security policies in Workday. There's ones for domains and there's ones for business processes. Ramesh, do you have a question? These individuals, when you explicitly add them to, you have to explicitly add them to a group, and then, or they could indirectly be added, through those roles, right? Like there's a position that's tied to these roles, and then depending on the role, those are the assignable roles. They get access to certain things. But, again, like I was saying, that these users, once you get a Workday account, doesn't mean that you just have access automatically. You have to configure the domains. And I think it goes into it in the next few slides. But these security policies, what we showed yesterday, right? Like you have view or modify access to the domain. And the domain, again, is a collection of tasks, reports. They could be report data sources. So the type of fields that you even have access to on a report, that's what that kind of tells you. And then view or modify, what I was showing yesterday is you could have view to just see the information and modify. Sriram, like the question you were asking could be to create the information, to edit the information, to update the information, but it's all controlled by the tasks that are part of that domain, right? And if you have modify access, you will automatically have view access. And I don't know if I, okay, cool. So these two, and I know this isn't your actual question, but I'll get to your actual question. This contact information and this contact information is the same. And when you just hover or just click on this and this menu that shows up,
Right.
so this area is considered kind of just a preview. So that way you know if you're in kind of the right place, and it, without clicking into it, it shows you kind of a preview of what's kind of on the next thing. But this is kind of, I would think of it like an actions, right? Like just the different things that you can do on contact information. So functional area is going to be that I'll be able to view all the, just the same things that are listed here, but kind of dig into it separately. So let's just open these in new tabs. It's just basically providing a menu, right? And then all the things that I can see. So audits is basically just the log showing me, and this is how it looks. So I could see what has happened with contact information from a specific date to a specific date. This helps with troubleshooting. I guess either this guy doesn't have access or that nothing really has changed. Otherwise, there's usually a grid letting you know what's changed, who changed it, what are the dates of the change. But it seems like nothing's really happened here in these windows. Then favorite, you could add this to your favorite task if this is where you continually go. I'm guessing nobody really favorites this. Integration IDs. I mean, it doesn't make sense in this specific area, but kind of like what you were talking about yesterday, employee ID or the different IDs that are on a specific person. This is kind of important when you're building integrations, when you're trying to call certain pieces of data for or modify certain pieces of data. You might not know the person's name, but you know the IDs, and you want to make sure that you can do that. And then reporting, you could just create custom reports off of it. So related actions, without actually clicking onto the hyperlink, you can perform certain functions, and it'll change based on who you click on, right? So if I go to, let's go over here to open with me. So when I do the related actions, just like I saw before, right? Like without even going to her profile, I can see just a preview really quickly. But then there's like all these actions that I can take. I can look at it in terms of related to benefits, do all these changes, business processes, like all this stuff. So there's not actual buttons, right? When I go to this Logan McNeil's profile, there's no actual buttons where I could do all that stuff. Related actions without going to specific areas. Like I'm sure if I went to benefits, I'd be able to do certain things and view certain pieces of information. But the related actions just kind of lumps all the stuff that I could possibly do on this worker over here. I think if I, like now they have this also, which I think does the same thing. But before it was very heavy about like doing that, those 3 dots being the related actions and stuff. Now they're moving, like if you look at Workday, whatever it was, Workday 10 to now they've changed it to releases. They're really ramping up on the UI. They have a lot of, you know, I've sat in several sessions where they talk about designers coming in, doing focus research groups and stuff. So I think that's going to continually change, like how they're going to show it in the UI and have buttons more than just these related actions and stuff. But before, everything was very dependent on clicking on those three dots, and many customers used to be confused as to how they actually do things initially. I think it was a little bit of a learning curve, but it's changing. I'm guessing the way things, maybe not obsolete. If you look at the UI in general, there's several ways of doing the same stuff, right? So I don't think
Right.
that they might get rid of it, but they'll continually build the tasks, I think, in such a way that's a little bit more intuitive. I think that they also have ways that, like every company, they track who uses what tasks, what's being run most heavily and stuff like that. And based on that, they'll probably go ahead and update the UI if it's like something that somebody's using or most people are using most frequently. Let's go ahead and just surface that as a button maybe. Or if it's that, they look at the number of cases or questions that are coming on community, and it's like that a lot of people are confused how to navigate to something, or that they're complaining that the navigation isn't the greatest, then they'll go ahead and invest in the UI and probably change things up. So, from release to release, I mean, it is nice that Workday kind of listens to all this feedback, but also it makes it very confusing sometimes for someone, right, that's trying to do their day-to-day, but things keep on changing. And it makes the documentation, and if once you get to a customer or the partner, you'll see, and something that, let me just make a note to show you guys is, it's very hard to keep track of these changes, and then Workday doesn't try to put screenshots in their documentation, and the reason is, or like kind of show what the UI looks like, because from release to release, it could be changing, or even within the release, right? So I think initially when they were smaller and they didn't have that many customers, it was very good to get updates, and like, there weren't many customers, I guess, screaming at them, like, why are you changing things? But in one way, it was kind of good, because if you had a problem, they would react really quickly. Now they've changed that. So they went from every Friday, big things being pushed out, to then having 4 big release updates. Then it now went to 2. And what they try to do is move everything to this preview tenant that I was talking about, right? And they let folks know, hey, we move this to preview, test it, see what works, see what doesn't work. And then they try to only do it in that big release update that I think comes around March and October, I believe. So now it is like they just released, right? 21 R2, and then 22 R1. So it's based by year, and then there's release 1 and release 2. So that's to tell about that. And then actually just taking a little bit of a tangent, which I think is kind of important to talk about. So I think the other thing that customers were complaining about is like, you don't give us enough time to, to uptake the changes. We need to also update our documentation, right? Like if you're onboarding people, you're constantly updating like what they need to be doing in Workday. And if people have specific these roles in Workday where they're performing tasks, and I just built documentation last release for something, and now you completely revamp the UI or the way I need to do things. Now I need to update the documentation. So I think that they're hearing it. So what's new in Workday? So you also have, like I was talking about, there's like this community, and I'm sure like PeopleSoft has something, right, similar,
Yes.
where, well, Hug, I guess it's a little bit different. This community is actually by Workday itself, meaning that documentation is delivered by Workday. Every release, they'll go ahead and update the information there. So whatever's coming out new, there's what's new videos to let you know. They're really short, because if you think about it, like every specific functional area, every single task, every single domain, like every small thing, that's changing, they try to find like the most impactful and try to create a video. And these videos are anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes. And it doesn't seem that long. It just is kind of there to quickly let you know what quickly changed. And if you need to kind of delve into it, then there's the Workday documentation itself, or these administrator guides that kind of go into things a little bit deeper. But this what's new in Workday, and let's see what shows up for this guy. This every Friday they release stuff. So let's say that there was a bug and they needed to make an update and it was a pretty critical bug, and then they release something on Friday, you'd be able to know what's changing. So let's see, I don't know how old this TMS tenant is, but let's just do this. And so you could do enabled for functional areas. So what I've seen done is, somebody's kind of in charge, maybe depending on how big your org is, I'm looking at all the things that are changing from Workday. But if it's like, somebody like, I guess like a Walmart, right? They probably have specific people looking at specific functional areas. Let's say they not only have what is it, like this contact information, somebody's really like in charge of looking at contact information and making sure nothing needs to change in terms of documentation, not only documentation, but the way that they're doing things or how it might impact their employees. So you could look for that. You could look, different ways of filtering the information. And then also, as you saw, there's so many different functional areas. Right now, we're only focused on HCM, and maybe the customer only has HCM. I wouldn't care what's going on in student or financials and stuff. So you could check that off. But let's see with this. Maybe I shouldn't have done it all the way to August. But I just want to show you the documentation that kind of comes back. So this was targeted to a specific release. 1098T is student related. So let's see, where's the functional stuff. It's the way that they do things, they're going to try their best, right? Like, I mean, from their standpoint, they don't want to disrupt any process a customer has or have a customer screaming at them. So what they're going to do is, if they're changing anything, one, they're going to give advance notice, right? Like they're going to put stuff in preview, let you know that it's kind of there to test, make sure that, and usually what they try to do is give you like a whole release. As soon as they know that they're going to be making changes to something, they give you kind of a whole release where it sits in this preview tenant, where you could test out your prod-like data, see how it's going to impact you, right? So it becomes, you need to have people that are really focused on this stuff in your org. So that's one thing. And then the second thing that Workday tries to do is, when they're about to change, let's say they went ahead, this was something that happened like I think a release or two ago, they masked the data around social security number. Before, as long as you had access to the information, you could just see it, right? Like you just be able to see it. Then they went ahead and masked the data. I don't know why, what the reasoning was. Maybe it came from, and usually a lot of the changes that they make come from customer requests, right? And they masked the data, so now it was like asterisks. Like even, looking at other people's data, it was an asterisk, and you had to turn the masking on. Like you had to do a number of things. But that sat in the preview tenant for quite some time. They got feedback on it. Some customers were happy, some weren't. But it sits in that preview tenant, and then only based on the feedback that they hear from customers after they've tested it, they will move to prod, right? So if nobody's tested it, they'll still move it to prod, but they give that window to the customers to test it. And then one thing also is, when they're doing something like any big changes, they also look at, run different, I guess, metrics or something like that. Who's using what? How are they using it? And then they go ahead, and if they need to, just like going back to your question, Sriram, like if there was, let's say they had a specific field that was used like kind of like for a mix of data, and then it came out that customers really wanted two separate fields because it was really should be two different categories. they would go ahead and kind of convert the data with the two fields that, okay, if people had chosen these categories, this should really be moved to a different field. And then they'll make sure that when that whole update is made, that the data is in the right place. Or what they'll do is in these notes, let you know how you uptake it. So this is kind of the work that you need to do in order for the data to look correct. But going back to the initial question, these updates, if it's not going to be impactful, you'll just see it. But if it is something that requires you to do work or that there's, uptake involved, then they'll go ahead and put some sort of like opt-in. Now, some of the stuff in HCM has like hundreds and hundreds of votes, and the votes actually determine what they're going to work on next. And some of the customers get, and you could see it in the comments, they're getting so frustrated. One of the things is about the maintenance window. And this is something that Workday has been talking about like forever, is why does the tenant have to go down on a Friday for you guys to apply patches, right?
Right.
We have global companies and people, and before it used to be much longer, and they're trying to, I think, I forgot what it was called, but zero downtime, right? Like that's what everybody wanted. And they've been talking about it for 6 years, right? That they're gonna get to a place for zero downtime. And if you look at the customer comments, they're very upset. There's some customers that are so upset, but I think it's, again, one of those things, like the bigger you get, the harder it is to do certain things, and who knows the whole technological reason behind it. But the brainstorms, help them kind of determine what they're going to pull in. But me now kind of seeing, like, through the years, like some of these brainstorms have many votes on it, but the problem is that there's so many dependencies. Probably there's some customers that wanted a certain way, other customers that wanted a different way. I think it's just much harder for them to move as fast as they'd like to, because it's pretty impactful. And I mean, you guys have probably seen it with PeopleSoft. What you kind of see on a weekly basis, and then of course for the big major releases, they go ahead and do this, and then it's tied to that community post that I was talking to. And the only way, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but the only way you get community access is either if you're working at a customer, right? And then they'll just they'll work with Workday to make sure that you get community access, or if you're working with a partner, and then they'll make sure that you get community access as well. That's the only way that you're able to do that. Okay, so I know a little bit of a tangent, but I wanted to make sure that I highlight this. Okay. Ramesh, I think you had come off of mute. Did you have a question? Child one, and everything was, you can inherit everything from the parent domain, right? So if you don't go ahead and configure, it'll just go ahead and inherit, but you could also turn off the inheritance on any of the child security policies, right? So you just go ahead and do that. So it's the same thing like those roles. So everything, what they try to do is just make it easier. So you're not having to go in and configure each of those child security policies, but also if you don't want anything to be inherited, you could just go ahead and turn that off. Assigning users to security policies. So you can assign them. I was trying to do that, but unfortunately, I think this person doesn't have access, but I'm going to continue just playing around. Maybe I might get into a specific security group that this person can assign users to. Let's see what this is. This is around that stuff. So you see how over here, like the role is owner, right? And it applies to the current organization and all the subordinates part of this organization. But these security policies here, like the ones that I was talking about, domain versus BP, this is what these domains and their access to those domains, like get only, so this is for integrations, right? Get input and view and modify. So this is what dictates what they have access to. this person, because, and whoever it was, Alex, he's the owner of this org. And what he'll be able to do is view and modify anything that's part of this domain security policy. So you have these actions, right? On this one, they can assign included organizations, they can assign locations, they can assign members using a rule, assign workers, like all this stuff. And then view, they'll be able to view the organization history. And what I'd like to do is actually walk you through an address thing. You know, again, I didn't try it in this tenant, but let's see how far I can get. So let's say, you know, the thing that I want to walk everyone through is, let's say, you know, I don't want everyone to see home address, right? And let's just say in the org, then for a specific department. So I think that'll help kind of show like how domains really are the things that kind of drive your access to certain pieces of data, right? Because that's the main question.
That's correct.
Okay, so let's see if I'm able to do that in this tenant. So we'll go back to my favorite report, functional areas. Look for contact info. Okay, I'm just going to go into this one. And then, so overarching what this is, right, this contact information, this functional area is being able to set up, maintain, and report on names, contact information such as address, phone numbers, and email address. When I drill into it further, and of course, we see like how granular it can get, right? If you look at all of this, so you have person data that's related to, you know, every piece of contact information, private, home, preferred, public, work, emergency contacts, and then you have this self-service. So this is really for anybody else to be able to view this information or take actions on any of this information. And then these self-service ones are employee as self. So if they need to update their emergency contact information. So that's where that whole employee as self security group comes into play. And then of course, there's also the setup task, setup kind of work that needs to take place. And I'm not sure why social networks was moved to the side, but and then the business processes, which we'll go into in a little bit. So I am going to go further into contact information. I don't know why it keeps on getting stuck here. Give me 1 second. And just a small thing, you know, this is kind of helpful, especially for administrators that have multiple screens up. Whenever you see these kind of 6 dots, it's nice. Like if you don't want to open up multiple screens, but you need to see the information that's in here and in here, maybe you're doing a compare sometime, and this is only for view, that you can kind of do this. Like when you're trying to view information, if you're editing information, these 6 dots don't appear, so you can't move that window around. But sometimes this is helpful, like when you have multiple screens. You might not see the benefit now, but hopefully whenever you're working, once you start working with Workday, you'll be like, oh yeah, the 6 dots, I can move it around. All right, small tangent. Let me go back here. Yes.
Can we modify these functional areas or they are delivered?
They're delivered.
Hmm.
Come on. Didn't you guys just see me earlier kind of go into this when you were asking the question, Shireen? We see all of these, right? This includes all these domains, 55. And what I wanted to show is once I click into this and I say that I want to see the domain security policies, I'm just going to be looking at this information, not this information below the business processes. So when I clicked onto that, what I get is, even though it said 55, but I think in several releases, what they did is they kind of made the UI a little bit cleaner. So if I look at the Zoom screen keeps on coming in my way. 1 second. You know, some of these kind of all relate to the same stuff, like emergency contacts. Then this is all around home. This is legal. Can you guys still see my screen? This like small window keeps on popping up. The ones that are kind of lumped together as that kind of maybe parent thing or are similar, they have these folders. So if it's just one kind of domain security policy and it's just, there's nothing further to it, then it just shows up like kind of like a page. If there's more like this, and there's even further granularity, then it shows up as a folder. So you can have that overarching emergency contacts. This domain provides access to a person's emergency contacts, but let's say I wanted it to even be more granular, right? Like the thing that I was talking about, inheritance and the parent domains. So this would be the parent domain, and these would be, if I've set up certain privileges, right, permissions at this level, they would get inherited to these others. But I could say, you know, let's see if this person has access. I edit permissions, and this person doesn't have access. I could, you know, change it and then make sure that it's not inheriting the permissions. And then going back to your question, Shriram, and then I'll continue in this thought. Audit contact information, and all of them, they kind of follow the same thing. It'll tell you what those actions are again, right? What you can actually do with with this domain, and what are the specific reporting stuff, the specific fields, right? That if I have access to view or modify, what am I actually giving permissions to? What are the items I'm actually giving permissions to? And, you know, let's see what this audit one is. Audit contact information. This domain provides access to audit all workers' contact information. So kind of looking at that log that I was showing you, right? To be able to look at the log, and the people that right now have access to it is HR admin, HR auditor, implementers, and information administrators. So any user that's part of these will have access. Let's see, I'm going to try again to see if I could see who has access. And this guy probably can't see it, but let's see. Oh, here we go, members. So he's part of this. Alex Patrick is part of this security group, HR administrator. And HR administrator has access to everything, but the one that we were looking at was audit for contact information, right? So here it is. You see, this keeps track of everything that's changing on this specific thing. So over here, sorry, Ramesh, could you just mute yourself? Sorry, I'm just getting background noise. And then once I'm done with this question, then feel free to unmute. So everything that's changed on this HR admin group, this audit trail is showing you, right? And what that specific, right, like everything from when the transaction was entered, I guess this is just the same thing over here. It's showing all these pieces of data here, who it was removed by, like, yeah. So it has it.
Yep.
And this over here is just saying, hey, who can see this audit trail on contact information for somebody? So if I'm doing related actions off of an employee, let's say Logan McNeil, if I don't have access to this audit contact information, I might see the audit trail, but I might not see specific information about contact information that was changed through the log.
Or
Every
you have
single thing, every single thing
okay.
in Workday. Because if you think about it, there's several different reasons, and the reasons, and you know, I'm just thinking logically, right? I'm sure there's many more. It's in case as an admin, I need to troubleshoot something. I want to see exactly what kind of changes has happened and stuff. Then also when and I've seen this before, when I open a support case and I'm trying to figure out, you know, around payroll, let's say, or benefits and stuff, and things aren't showing up on integrations correctly, what I've seen the support people do is actually open up these audit trails to figure out, because with these integrations, it's very time and effective dates based. They're looking at these audit trails to see like when things have changed, and would that mean that it would show up on a report or an integration. And then what I've also seen them do when I've opened those support cases is when they're talking to me, they've constantly referenced these audit logs. Like sometimes developers have also logged onto my cases and they reference these audit trails. And what I've noticed in all my years is these are really powerful. It has a lot of information, and I've seen it all over the place to create that value. So it really depends. I guess the way to answer your question is where you take the related actions to view the audit trail, right? Does that make sense? So if you do it off the calculated field itself, calculated field one is just going to tell you when you updated. Let's say I you know, removed a specific field from the calculated field because I didn't feel like it was necessary. It's going to store. But if you do it off the value, let's say, right, and it's kind of an instance where you can kind of click into further, that's really going to be on the data that was processed for that calculation. I hope that makes sense. Enabling a specific, right, functional area, enabling a specific domain security policy. Always make sure, like if you're running into issues, that should be the first thing you check, right? Is it active or is it not active? Now let's see if I could get through the example I wanted to give. So not emergency contact, that wasn't the one. I wanted home contact and personal data. And as you see here, right, like, sorry, click happy. There's securable actions, 181. So if I just want every single thing, whatever I configure here to have access to all this stuff at a higher level, I would just set up the security appropriately, right? The permissions appropriately. And what this domain is, it provides access to the contact information of people, including contact information marked as private, also provides access to the contact information tab on the person's profile. And something, if we have time today, I want to talk about profiles also, which I think is a little bit of a tangent, but I think it's kind of helpful, especially once you get to a customer, you'll probably be playing around a lot with that. So, but I want to get at the granular stuff. So I may want to configure this, but it may be that all I really need to focus on, and just for this exercise, and again, let's see if I could do it in this tenant, is around home address of people. So there's a lot of actions that are still tied to it, but being able to view or modify, and some of the stuff is around student, but again, we're just focused on what is it, a worker or an employee. So here's all the different stuff. And these are like around related actions or different views. So I wouldn't be worried too much about this one, but this is being able to edit and delete and just view an information, right? And here are all the people that kind of have access to either view or modify. And what I want to do is I'm going to take a quick screenshot so I can add this back so I don't mess up stuff for any specific person. So everything else should remain. See, I didn't touch anything here, but I touched this, but because it's still showing, and does anybody remember why this is still showing even though I removed it? No, with pending, remember that whole thing about pending security policy changes? There's this other kind of confirmation, right? Because this is so powerful, you can change somebody's access to something. They just have this confirmation thing. And even when you're changing, if you saw that there was kind of like this yellow, oh, this person doesn't have. Let me just see. Activate pending security policy. The security administrator would get these, make sure that, they have either a ticket in for changing something like that or an email to kind of back it up. And they run that report, just say, okay, and then it updates the thing immediately, right? That person removed all these security groups and now only HR administrator has access. There was something that you brought up, Sriram, and I was looking for that report yesterday to see all the changes. And again, I don't know if this guy has access. Yeah, all those changes that have taken place around activating, like all the security policy changes, and to see which one.
Yes.
It's this, and again, like this guy doesn't have access to everything, but you'd be able to see every time something changed and why it changed. So that takes place here. Of course, with people just testing it, they're just putting in like test whatever, but I would think that, and what I've done is you specifically say why you're changing something, why you've approved or activating something. So that way there's a good record of it. Right now,
Right.
people that have been changing it have just been saying, So with this, it will allow you to make the change. This kind of supersedes that. I haven't ever seen it stop me from making a change. So I feel like it supersedes all of that. It's not going to stop you from making it effective that date. So let's say somebody's in the middle of, one of the tasks that that domain gives you access to that I've just taken away is edit compensation. And if I make that security policy change effective for the date that I'm actually viewing it currently, I won't be able to edit it. All of a sudden that access is taken away from me, and I will probably, and it happens, I will probably have to talk to whoever the security admin, be like, hey, what's up? I was working on this and you just took away my access. But that's different from a BP, right? Like I'm just taking away view and modify access. I'm not actually doing anything to the steps in the BP. So nothing's really in limbo. Like, yeah, this part isn't effective dated, right? The security groups, but the security groups tied to the domains, right? And when you're activating those pending security policy changes, that's what makes it effective on a certain date. So if you're trying to ask the question of, let's say I know that this person should have access on this specific date, and right now I'm just kind of putting it as a placeholder, you can't do that. Okay, so the thing I wanted to show with that address stuff, and maybe, if you have access, let's say at some point to Logan McNeil, what I wanted to show is, so you have this hierarchy, right? And she has, oh yeah, in this tenant, she has a lot more people. So she kind of has access, it's going in the wrong direction, sorry. So she has, and I want to see the org hierarchy. Give me one second. This part. Org. So human resources, and there's several subordinates, right? And that's what I want to do. Navigate hierarchy. And not this way. I clicked the wrong thing. Oh, somebody added somebody. Okay, so there's 3 departments, right? She has benefits, payroll, and recruiting. And if I go all the way down, Beth, Isabel, and let's say I'm logged in as Logan McNeil. Because, and I wanted to see home address, contact information. I can see that information, right? Because right now, let's say Logan McNeil is part of the HR administrator security group. And the way it's set up, let me go back there. Functional area. So let's say she's part of HR administrator. I have it as yes. And then when I do this, I want to see role-based. Okay. What I have here is like, I'm an HR partner. I should be able to see all my current organizations and unassigned organizations contact information. So the domain policy that I was on, right? Contact info. Person data. Let me try something else. Why is it, give me 1 second.
So for a particular user, suppose that user doesn't have as of today to the payroll company. And can I give access today saying that as of effective on Monday, this guy is going to have access, I mean, permission to payroll component?
No.
Yeah, then it is not effective dated. It is as of, as and when you give the permission, then
Yes.
only he will have access.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not sure why this isn't showing up. Give me 1 second to figure this out. It's probably because I'm not Logan McNeil. But basically what I wanted to show you is if we go in here and like how I wanted to do it before, HR administrator, right? And it was like, yes, and since I'm logged in as Alex, what I wanted to show is when I go to Isabel, right? I am basically saying, hey, I should be able to see anybody, any home contact, especially around address, right? Because that's how low level I'm kind of going in the domain. So trying to remove this. I am only focused on this home address one, right? I want to be able to see right now, the way the security is set up is kind of like everyone that's part of the HR admin or an HR partner or any of this stuff has both view and modify. And the way the role base, so for HR partner, it's set up is what it's saying here is basically that if I have this role on that specific org for this person, so this person is part of this org, the payroll team, right? Even though Logan McNeil, she is part of whatever it was, sorry. I think HR. Yeah, part of HR services. So Logan McNeil owns this. Her role is HR partner. Hopefully no one's changed it. Logan McNeil, HR partner, she should be able to see, according to the way that the security is set up, that current organization and any unassigned subordinates. So all unassigned subordinates, all that means is if I haven't gone in to the subordinates and put somebody else besides Logan McNeil as HR partner, and you'll be able to see that when I go to payroll, which is one of the departments, right? That is rolls up into HR services. I look at the roles and I look for HR partner, which is right here. It's inherited. So basically what I'm saying is HR partner, because of the way that the domain is set up for view modify for that home address data, she should be able to see and modify anybody in her current organization or any unsubordinate. if I only wanted her to see, or anybody in HR partner to only see their current organization's HR, I mean the home address, I would select this. If it's that it was, I don't care, all organization and all subordinates, so the 3 other departments, she should be able, then I would just select this. I don't care about an inheritance, and I'm just making sure that she has access to everything. And then this one applies, and let's see if I could do this. So I could show you. If I select this, then I could say, so hopefully what I'm trying to show you is like, you could kind of do the same thing in many different ways. So this applies to current organization and also and the levels below. So I can put one level below that the subordinates, but let's say she has 3 departments in HR services, but those 3 departments have further teams below it. But I only say that she can only go down 1 level. So in this case, let's look at the org chart. If I say 1 and I'm Logan McNeil, I can only go and see anybody that's part of this, these departments, right? But if I went further into Beth, and she has 8, right? So all these people are part of the payroll department, but let's say Norman, right, had another team that goes down another level. Anybody that's part of that team, that department, I wouldn't be able to see logged in as Logan McNeil, their home address information. They would be, right, like let's say, right, just remove, or actually not remove her from HR partner, but I would have another role, right? So I could have multiple, so maybe it's HR partner underscore and whatever this supervisory org's name is, and then make sure that Dylan is assigned as a user part of that role, right? So in the other 2 departments, HR partner, great. Logan McNeil and Dylan both need access. So they have access to the 2 departments. In the other department, the one that was for that other female, right? So recruiting, right? Logan McNeil doesn't need access to that address. I would just make sure that there's another assignable role, maybe HR partner for recruiting, and then just assign a different set of users in there. So when I select that role, Logan McNeil isn't part of it. Okay. So that's what I was trying to get at with this whole exercise, is to make sure that I could just show that you could get down to the granular domains, and domains, of course, are delivered by Workday, and they try to get down to the granular level, right? Based on customers' use cases and stuff and the feedback that certain people only need access to certain things, and combination of these security groups, these roles, and the configuration of the domains, you can get down to the level of, even if everybody, the next subordinate, which is level 1, let's say, right? You can even configure based on these roles who has access to the different departments' home address information. So Logan McNeil can have access to 2 departments' information, but not this 3rd one, the recruiting one, by configuring the roles appropriately here. All right, that takes care of that. With the next time remaining, what I wanted to do is, let's see. So hopefully what this kind of solidifies is, like, you know, configurable security. It's kind of that bridge between what users can see and do in Workday. We've gone over security groups. You know, we looked at functional areas, and then about domains being tasks, reports. The reports, which we'll get into, are like, if you drill down further, is report data sources and fields. And then the BP one, which is, and actually, let me go back. I feel like I didn't do this justice. But we will get into BPs a little bit more, but looking at this stuff, let's see. Actually, not that. Let me do this. Great. All right. So on here, I want to see business process policies and specifically legal name change. Okay, so this is through the BP, right? This is not the domain now. This is the business process policy. And basically, what this is just saying who can take that initiating action. So right now, if I wanted to change my legal name, who can do that? And this is off of the employee as self menu action. So let's go back to Alex Patrick. And let's see how far I can get with this one. Change my legal name. Before I even do that, let's see. I'm sorry, I'm doing a little bit of setup work, so I'm gonna jump between screens. And then I can walk you through exactly what I did. So this goes back to making sure what BP is currently assigned to this, like since Alex is part of this, and I want to do that legal name change. So let's go ahead, legal name. So okay, it's using the default definition. Great. It probably has a lot of stuff in there that I really don't care about right now. And I want to make sure that nothing gets triggered and we could actually change the name. So, but it's nice over here, employee as self. So since I'm logged in as Alex, I should be able to do this proof name change, HR partner. I just need to check one thing. I don't think Alex is part of the HR partner. Yeah, he's not part of it. So I'll probably have to remove the rest of the stuff. Okay, anyway, so it's using the default definition. Legal name change. Okay, so there's one thing that I want to do. I want to change for this guy, this supervisory org, I want to change the definition. So I am going to change the legal name definition, but I don't want to change the one that other folks are using. So I'm going to create my own, but I'm going to use their default definition and then configure it further. And I'm going to take out several things so I could actually do the name change. So right now, and remember like the if scenario, again, we'll go into it further, but not triggered from onboarding. So if this person is being onboarded, if they do the legal name change, this isn't gonna get fired. But if it's like I'm already an employee, all this is saying is that I want to go ahead and change that. And let's see, this review legal name change. Let me. Okay, so now I think I've gotten into a place where I could actually use this as an example. I think this will actually work. So going back, we've been talking about domains that gives you access to, again, reports, tasks, and all this stuff. But the BP policy is what gives you permission to do certain actions or to even fire off the BP. So the way that it's done is you go to the functional area, just like I did here for contact information. And then in that functional area, you get to say who can start the business process. So who can actually fire this off. So for over here, just like I was saying, if I want to say change my legal name, I just need to make sure. And the description over here is employee as self menu action. And all that is, and let me go back, is that related actions, right? Again, is from here, an employee taking that action. So that was under personal data. And change my legal name. So since I have access through this policy, employee as self, contingent worker as self, I fall into this right now, right? Because I'm doing this for myself as Alex, and I had access to that. So that's what this is saying. But if for whatever reason I didn't have this here, then I shouldn't be able to do that action, that initiating action. It would never fire the BP. As soon as I'm going to complete that step, is going to say who can do that initiating action of editing. So actually updating this information is these folks. So an HR admin can do it, the employee as self can do it, HR partner. So other people on behalf of the employee can also edit the information. And then this part is through the web service. Who can do this through an integration, right? Or doing what we'll get into later through an EIB or implementers through an iLoad. So there's also, again, another initiating action that can be done outside of the UI through the web service. And this REST service is kind of the same thing. And then these different steps that can be done in the BP. So as you saw in the default definition, there's this review legal name change, this action step. Hopefully I can get back to it. Let me close the windows I don't need. I need that. Okay, so this review legal name change, because it's a step right now, I can say HR partner can do it, but I can also change it, I believe, to, I mean, it doesn't make sense to have employee as self, but if I wanted to, I can go ahead and change that. Where did it go? And then who can do actions on the entire business process, like view everything. So these are the security groups. Who can view only completed business processes. And right now it's just empty because the other stuff is filled out. Who can approve different things on the BP? These are all the folks. So every BP, there's things like this, right? Like canceling through the web service, canceling through the UI, just like domains where you're giving access to certain things, the same thing with the web service. You're giving actions to certain, through the BP, you're giving certain people access to take actions on the BP. So that's through this. So let me finish my thought over here. And just to make things easy, I am going to remove this stuff and just do proof of name change as employee as self, great. And it is going to be effective today. Okay, and I want to change it to Alexander. And this is where I can add proof to anything, like, you know, if it was a sort of certificate or something, to that way, whoever's reviewing it, if they need to see that information, they can see it. I click submit. And now it says, hey, you need to provide approved, submit government approved documentation. I don't know if it reached my inbox, but here it is. It's saying the same thing. And let's say, hey, I already attached it. Oh, the other thing, well, I did show that, so great, I completed the to-do. Let's see, that should have taken care of everything on that business process. So it says process successfully completed. Great. And let's look at the process. So everything was done. So let's do done. And let's see now if we try to look for Alex, his name was now changed to Alexander Patrick.